So I'm going to end it and then we'll just get into some of these answers that I see from here. So one thing I want to go over, and it seems like both people that answered the question was when first learning how to read, it's helpful to have my child first look at the picture and then use the picture to figure out the word. This is something we were teaching children not 4 or 5 years ago. Look at the picture, look at the first sound, and we're finding that this has not been helpful at all. So this is in fact a myth. The same thing with memorizing a lot of sight words. It's more in line now to show children even those words that are not fully decodable, like a word like said. Parts of those words are the S and the D you can hear, and then we teach children that A and I is the part you need to learn by heart. So this is also now considered a myth in reading. Okay. For the third one, when starting to learn how to read, it is helpful to say to the child, look at the first letter to figure out the word. So again, this is something we were teaching parents and children a few years ago that, look at the picture, look at the first sound, think about the context. Okay, now what's the word? What we're finding now is we want to say to the child, read the word from left to right. And it seems like it takes longer for them to progress in their reading this way. What we're really doing is setting a stronger foundation for children. And then it says good readers read all the sounds from left to right. So this is similar to that. We want to make sure when a child is reading a word, they're going sound by sound and then blending together. So we want to make sure if the word is cat, that they're looking at each sound, at, and then bringing it back together. Now, at some point, that word's going to be automatic for them. But in that beginning stages where they're sounding everything out, you want to make sure that you're redirecting them to the word if they make an error. All right. So as we have talked about now, that reading isn't about guessing or memorizing, it's about building a system that works for any word. So today I'm going to start with giving you a brief summary on how we teach children how to read. So we're going to start with the 5 key components of reading that the National Reading Society published a few years ago. So here's our 5 key components to reading, and this is very important to know because it teaches us that these pieces work together to create a strong reader. So the first one is phonemic awareness. Now, their definition is the ability to focus on and manipulate individual sounds or phonemes in spoken words. So what does that really mean? It means hearing and manipulating the sounds in words. We're not even looking at letters yet. We're listening to the sounds. And this is incredibly important. What we're finding is that children that have difficulty learning how to read or struggling are children that need more work on their phonemic awareness. And we'll talk more today on how we can do that. The next one is phonics. So phonics, the relationship between letters of written language and individual sounds of spoken language. So really what we're looking at how letters represent sounds. Our next one is fluency. So that's that ability to read accurately and with expression. And with our younger children, this takes time. This might look like them rereading a passage or a story several times, or it might look like you or a teacher modeling the passage and then them reading back to you. So this takes a lot of time and practice for children, especially at those younger ages, to grow that fluency. And the last one is vocabulary. The last 2, vocabulary and comprehension, we're not going to dive into too much today. What I like to say about vocabulary is that right now, your child is taking in a lot of vocabulary just by you reading to them every night. If they're going to school, by interacting with other children and hearing the words that are used in the classroom for different units or projects that they're doing. And of course, comprehension is the ability to understand the text. Now, the whole reason we want to create that strong foundation for children is as they get older, you want them to be able to understand these complex ideas and be able to understand what they're reading. So right now is the time to build that strong foundation. So as they grow, they're able to really understand and comprehend what they're reading. Are there any questions?
Nope.
So, okay, these are actually great responses. So I'm looking right here at Emily. So I can see that you need your child needs more work on blending those sounds together. So I'm definitely going to share with you some good resources today that will help, and some games that we like to play. And Prenati, I noticed that you said your child can recognize those letters and sounds, which is awesome, and put together 3 words, but gets confused on the letters B and D. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because before the end of the session, if I forget, please remind me. I have a way that I teach students, but B and D, B, D, P, Q are all really tricky for children, especially the younger ones.
Yeah.
One thing I
Confused with the numbers 6 and 9. Yeah.
Those are, yes, and 6, 9. There's another one too that kids really all out.
Yeah, and he also tends to write like alphabets in reverse, like S, he starts the other way and he writes the other way. He does that for a few alphabets, like sometimes Z, or yeah, it's just, I don't know. And he, for the longest time, actually wrote his name like in reverse, and I like sometimes he still goes back to that. It's very simple name, it's only 3 letters, but he tries to write from the other side of the page. I don't know why he does that.
Very normal. And what you're doing, I'm sure, then is modeling for him. Just and having a model, or what I keep in my house, if you excuse me for just 1 second, I should have had this in front of me. Is I keep a little chart. It can really look like anything. Can you guys see this? This is going the right way for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it gives the child a visual aid too, so that they can see which way the letters are supposed to go. I keep this for my kids all the time, so they have something to look at, especially my son when he was in kindergarten, because he would reverse them as well. And I keep that also for my tutoring students. So this is great information that I can really focus in on today. Sorry, I'm not used to talking so much. All right, so let's talk about each part, and then I'll make sure I dive deep into those pieces that your children specifically need work on. The first thing I really wanted to talk to you today was phonemic awareness. And that phonemic awareness is really what helps children learn how to segment words, but also how to put them back together, which can be really tricky for some kids. So there's 4 different pieces of phonemic awareness that children are taught in schools. There's blending, like we said, and segmenting. There's also deleting to take a sound away, and substituting to swap one sound with the other. We're going to really focus on, since we only have a certain amount of time together today, on blending and segmenting. So I have some games that I do with my own children that I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to just share briefly the video, and I do have these on my page, but you can also request them if there's something that you thought you'd like to try with your kids. So I'm going to quick share this video. This is a video of my child playing a game called I Spy a Sound. So it's a little twist on I Spy, where instead of just saying I spy something red, I say to my child, I spy a at, and then they have to put the sounds back together. And it is definitely something in their environment around them, so they have like a cue or a clue. So I'll show you really quick what that looks like.
All right, now you try mine. I spy with my little eye a dog. What am I looking for? A dog.
Me, dog.
Good.
So you can see that There's obviously 2 dogs in his environment, so I wanted to make it something that you want them to feel success right away, so that then you can start to build it out a little bit more. And then later in the video, I said I see a cat, and it took them a little while because there was a picture of a cat on the wall. So we're gonna start with something really easy in their environment and then go up. Another game that's fun to play, if you have a Slinky or if you don't, it doesn't matter, is a word I call stretchy. It's called stretchy word Slinky. And all you're doing is you're taking your hands like this because you're going to stretch your Slinky apart, whether you have one or not. And you might say something like, app, app. And you're showing the child how to pull those sounds apart and then put them back together without even any letters physically in front of them. So this just gives them, again, a good practice of that phonemic awareness.
Can you do that again?
Yeah, sure. And I will send you guys some like I'll send you like documents too, so that you don't have to write everything down. But I know personally when I do these things, I write them down so I remember what you know.
Yeah.
So you take your hands kind of like you have a Slinky in your hands, or if you do, that works too. And you stretch the word out. So I'm going to stretch out the word map. So I'm going to do it very slowly. And then you clap your hands back together and you say map. There's also something that you can do with vowels that I found helpful with kids, which is to elongate it. So I might say, and that just gives them a more of a chance to hear the vowel, because vowels can be really tricky because your 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 you're using so much of the same part of your mouth that it can be very confusing for children.
Okay.
All right, and the last one I want to show you is just a simple game that's called mystery word matchup. So you really can use anything, right? You can use teddy bears, little figurines, whatever toys. I just happen to have these little hooked on phonics cards that someone gave me. And you pick 2 to 3 cards. And again, you want to do with some stuff that things are familiar. You want to start with them start with them being able to feel successful, and then make it a little trickier after that. So you can even add cards. But again, here I'm just going to say, I find the card that is a ox. And you're going to say that, and then they're going to point to the card. Now, if you want to make it trickier, you could get rid of the cards or add more cards. But it's really, there's a lot of different ways you can change that. Sorry. So now, once you teach your phonemic awareness, you're going to start moving into phonics. And I start with letters and letter sounds. Now, if you have a child that's really eager to learn how to read, you should start with M, S, T, and P, because with those 4 letters, you can first of all, they can read a lot of words that you can put together, and they can spell, or they can encode a lot of words with those letters. I also tell parents, if they're just starting to teach their child letters, to also go with their name. So currently I have my child's name up on our wall, like in our kitchen, and we're going through the letters in his name, learning what they are and their sounds, because that's really personal to them, and it'll make it easy for them to learn those letters more quickly because they're going to see them more often. So when I'm teaching a child letter names, I use something called a visual drill. And I can share this with you if you're interested, but I created my own visual drill just using a little bit of ChatGPT because I'm not an artist. But what this looks like, and then I'm going to model this a little bit for you, is you're going to pick a few letters if your child's just learning, or you're going to use all of them if it's just something they need review on, right? You're going to use this as you feel is necessary. But what I do is I start with a few letters that I know the child needs to work on. I'll give them an assessment and then decide from there. But what you do is you show them the letter in your visual drill, and you're going to say something like A, apple, A. And while they're saying, they're going to say with you, A, apple, A, they're then going to form the letter either in the air, on the table, in some physical way. And you're going to make sure that when they're forming that letter in the air or on the table, that they're forming it correctly. And this just helps with those reversals and with you wanting to make sure that they're forming the letter correctly to make it easier for them as they continue to grow. Another one would be, we'd say C, cat, and then because U is really a difficult one to come up with something good, I came up with a little monster and his name is Ugg. So they would say U, Ugg, So that's what the visual drill looks like. And again, I can send this to you if you would like it. Something very simple I put together. It's something that I use in all of my lessons when I'm tutoring students. So because it just gives them a chance to really practice the sounds. I also use it for my older students when they're doing patterns or vowel teams because they need the practice in that too. So it actually is something I use all the way up with most of my students as a visual drill. So then I have some games that I like to do with my students, my pre-K students or my younger students, to make it a little bit more fun. I'm always trying to get them to move in some way, move their body or engage so that they don't get bored. So I am going to pull up this video.
For this game, you're going to choose 3 or 4 letters that you're currently working on with your child. You're going to show them the BIM, have them name each letter, and then you're going to cover it up. And tell them to turn around. You just take your hand in, pull out a letter, and then you're going to lift it up again and have them figure out which letter is missing.
This is a game that kids really enjoy, and it's very simple. And if you want to bring in the sounds, you could even say the sound instead of the letter, and then they have to tell you the sound that is missing. And then kids like to do it to you, right? They like to hide the letters, and it makes it very interactive because they really enjoy making you guess. But they're still practicing their letters and their letter sounds, so it works. Another game that I enjoy doing with students is letter basketball because again, it gets them moving. And it gives time for me to do almost a short check-in to see what letters that we've practiced that they know and which ones I really need to review. And this is called trash can letters. So I have used this before. I usually tutor out of my local library, or I do Zoom as well. And in this case, that's where I am in the library waiting for a student, so I just quick shot a video of what we were gonna do.
Play a little review game using trash can letters. So I've actually scattered around a bunch of letters that we've been working on around the room. What they're gonna do is they're gonna pick up a letter, name it, so they'd say H, crumble it up, and then toss in the trash can. It's kind of a nice, easy way to review our letters and get some movement in.
So that's another game that you can play with your students or your child, sorry. And in this case, you don't have to print them out. I just happen to have them with me, but you can just write it on a sheet of paper, throw it around the room, have them say the letter and its sound, balled up, and throw it in the trash can. And that just gives them a chance again for you to kind of check in and see what letters they know, which ones do we need to practice. I've spoken a lot. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've shared so far? Okay, there you go.
When he's making letters, he tries to write it from the opposite side, and he gets frustrated when I actually correct him. How do I stop him getting frustrated? I get frustrated too, and sometimes I don't want to yell at him, but I kind of yell at him. But how do I avoid that situation?
So there's a few things that I use that I can show you. One thing is is to remember like you're human, right? And it's hard because my son was the same way. He would get very annoyed with me every time I would try to show him what to do. So this is something I really like. Are these letters? It's a Montessori product, and I'll kind of send you guys all the things that I mentioned today too. But the nice thing about this is, first, it's not a pencil. Well, it is a pencil, but it's not like gonna write. It's this little wooden pencil the kids love. And it gives them a chance to see how they should form it. And you can even say, oh, you can model for them in true Montessori fashion. Okay, start at the top, go to the bottom, hop around. And this gives them a chance to really feel it so that you don't need to step in as much, because I have two boys and they don't want me to, they want to do it the way they want to do it, and then they get angry, and just like you said, like they get frustrated. So I try to just incorporate like things like this to help them. Another thing is, sometimes when they're that little, their hands get tired and then they get even more frustrated. So I do have other things that I use. I know you're looking more at like forming the letters, but if I find my child is tired or the child I'm tutoring is tired, I have these like little Play-Doh stampers with letters, and then they can stamp it and they at least get a chance to see what the letter should look like. And because it's like this, it'll form it just right as long as they're holding it correctly. And this, while it doesn't help them form the letter correctly, it helps them see it and it gives their hands a little bit of a break. I don't know, does that help?
That does help.
Yeah, and it's hard to be a parent and try and teach your child all the letters and sounds. Another thing, since we're talking about it anyway, I wanted to show you guys a few other things for letters. Is I have these too. These are really fun for building words or practicing letters. They're like little Lego boards. So you can pull the letters out and they can look at them. They can talk about the letter's name and sound, or they can build words using these letters. These have been really great and fun for kids. And another thing I do, so I always have to have a lot of different things, because sometimes I see kids a few days a week and they get kind of tired of the same thing. These are really fun. They're really simple. They have, and it's probably hard to see, but they have, let's see with the red one, the lowercase and uppercase form of the letter. So what I'll do is I'll take a few of them, take them apart, and then we'll sit and put them together. And this is also like sort of kind of like a low, chill way to work on letters and sounds, because we're just sitting on the floor and we're putting them together and we're pulling them apart. And I try not to push, like if it's my child, if it's not somebody tutoring, I'll sit with them for a few minutes, and if they're done with it, they're done with it. If it's a child I'm tutoring, I will specifically only choose 4 or 5, knowing like what their attention span is, so that there's not that pushback or they don't get frustrated. And then the last thing I use for letters, just like I said, because I have to always be changing, I have to always often change things around, is this game. It's called Squishyland. It's a favorite amongst all my kids. They absolutely love Squishyland. And it's just like Candyland, with like these tiny little squishies, and there's different cards in there. So like, I really could have showed you anytime, but the first level is like letters and letter sounds, and then it gets into beginning sounds, and then CVC words and 2-syllable words. So it's a game that really grows with them. This is a game that if I forget to bring it to my tutoring sessions, my students are truly disappointed with me. So it really stays with me all the time, because kids absolutely love it. And I mean, it's taken me years and years to build these things up, but if I can share with you just 1 or 2 things that you think might be helpful, obviously that's great. So we've talked about letters and letter sounds. We've talked about phonemic awareness. We've talked about some phonics, and we've talked about fluency. So I want to touch next on encoding and decoding. And then I want to show you some examples of really excellent decodable books, and where you can find some free resources as well, which is always really nice, because they read that book once and then sometimes they're kind of done with it. So First, I want to talk to you about encoding, which is just spelling. And when you have a child that's working on their spelling skills, say you want them to spell the word cat, you're going to have them write that word and you're going to work through each sound. So, at. And you might even have to model over and over again them spelling that word. This is, again, a good time to have a whiteboard. Now, when I started tutoring, I actually just used a piece of paper in a clear sheet, and it works just as well. And then just like a little dry erase marker or something even smaller. These are the hand to mind one, and I only have these because they come with magnetic letters, which is another thing that's helpful to have, are magnetic letters. But again, it doesn't have to be these. I use these organized. They have all the letters in here. And the helpful thing about something like this for me is it goes into more complex patterns like digraphs, vowel teams, and endings. But really, a whiteboard, piece of paper and a sheet, where marker and eraser are great. And then any kind of magnetic letters that you have are wonderful as well. Those are things that are great for teaching kids how to spell. And then for reading, right, for teaching a child how to segment and blend, it's going to be a combination of all the things that we've talked about so far today. But really, when they're starting to segment and then put words together, it takes a ton of practice and patience, which can be very hard as the parent. I can understand that. So I have a few things I'm going to show you today, but I also have a few things I'm going to show you, but I also have some ideas. If you're familiar with Montessori, Teachers Pay Teachers have something called the pink material that is very similar, and it's like $1 or $2, if you know what I mean, because buying all these things at once is a lot. But this is what I use with a lot of my students. It's called Touch and Read. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because there's a lot of help. So what I will normally do is I will set up maybe 3 to 4 of these words, and you can see they all have the same vowel because you want to go one vowel at a time. And then we touch each sound. And we'll say b-at, b-at. And then I'll pull out 3 or 4 pictures that match, and then they'll have them put the picture together. So I don't want to show them the picture and everything all at once, because like we talked about, we want them to focus on those sounds, but we also want the child to feel successful. So they'll point to each sound, try to blend it together, and then I'll share with them the picture that they can put on top. So these my students really like because they're nice and bright. And then I was sharing this Emily too right beforehand. This is a game that's like Uno that kids really like, where it's called blah blah blah. And it's similar to Uno, but then you have cards. So you have these fun cards like draw 2 cards or draw 4 cards. But the basis of the game is each person gets 7 cards. You put 1 card down to start. So for example, this one would be dig. And then the first person that goes is looking, do they have a D, an I, or a G? And if they do, they can put it down. And then they say the sounds and blend the word. Now, if your child is, having difficulty blending, then you just help them, right? You say, oh, dig, dig, and then you move on, because this is giving them that practice and also making learning fun and enjoyable. And then the last one I wanted to show you is this one, which is also a lot of fun. This one comes with 4. And again, I'll send you guys all these things, because I know I'm kind of showing it to you rapid fire here a little bit. This is really fun for kids because it comes with these word cards and these different pockets. And I was just using these with some students at beginning of this year that I was teaching. And if you can see, I'm going to put it a little closer. You can see there's words here, so for example, this word is cut. So what the child and you are doing, you're taking turns and or they can read all the words. It really depends on where they're at. And they'll read the word like jet, and then they'll look here to see if they have it. Now, I have some kids that can sit and read through all those cards and they're more than happy to. Sometimes I will purposefully kind of dig through so that after every one or two or three, they're getting the right thing so they don't get frustrated. So it's kind of like something you have to gauge your child and see if they're like going to stay with it or if they'll get frustrated. But it's a lot of fun. They like popping these little pops and it gives them a chance to see if they have the word and then to segment and blend it. So these are fun ways to practice reading and spelling, and that's what I'm all about when I'm working with kids, because my goal is always to make reading fun and enjoyable and make them want to just keep practicing and keep growing and keep feeling very confident in their skills. Were there any questions? Everyone's good. So I'm gonna wrap up with decodable books. So when you're teaching your child how to read, or when your school is working on reading, you want to make sure that they have in their possession or in their environment books that they can read independently with very little help from you to make them really grow in that confidence in their reading. So I'm going to show you a visual. That goes over how to use decodable books at home. And then I'll show you some of my favorites that I love. So this first one, so right here, decodable books are so important. Like I said, they build those fundamental reading skills and they build that confidence. So the first thing you want to do is pick a book or a short passage that helps them practice the pattern that you or their teacher just introduced, or something that you've introduced previously. So if you just talked about the letter A and T, those would be the only sounds. So I'm going to give you a quick visual of what that would look like before I move on with a program called UFly. I'm going to share my screen and show you how I get over there. So this is UFly, and a lot of school districts use it. But to give you an understanding of how this works is the first 5 lessons they've talked about: A, M, S, T, P, all these sounds that we talked about, F, and it doesn't get down to, it gets down to about, oh, sorry, when they get down to lesson 8, they have this decodable passage. And in this passage, it only has these letter sounds in it and the heart words that have been introduced. So if you see, it's very simple, right? It says, I sit, I tap, I sit, and I tap. So it's only the sounds that have been introduced to the child, which makes it a lot, it makes their skills grow nice and slowly. It gives them a chance to really build that confidence. The next thing is you really want to encourage your child to do the work. Like we talked about, we want them to first look at that word, sound it out, and then use the picture as like a training wheels to help them out. But we want them looking at that word first. Then your child might get stuck. What you want to do is not tell them the word immediately. You want to try one or all of these things. We want to say touch each sound. Say the sound slowly and blend it back together. If they're still like, I don't know, or then you help them, right? But we want them to at least try themselves. The next thing we're looking at is reading something more than once, because then it gives them that confidence as well. So I have kids when they first learn how to read that passage that I showed you that probably might look a little boring to you, but they are thrilled. They're so excited that they can read it. They read it over and over again because they can do it on their own. And then here are some things that I recommend. So I just showed you the UFly has all these free passages that the kids can read and then illustrate. And then I also talk about a site I use. It's called Measured Mom, and she has a lot of books. It's like $8 a month, and Measured Mom has all these different books that you can download. And I like this for me because obviously I'm working with a lot of different kids, so it's hard to have enough books for everyone. But it's also nice because as a parent, like I said before, sometimes the kids will read it several times. Sometimes they'll read it once, be like, I read that book already, and then they're done. So I'm gonna pull up these printables really quick right now and show you what I'm talking about. And the students love these because again, they can take them home too, and they can keep them. So you can see again, like just like UFly, it focuses on the letters they've learned, and it builds on that. And the stories are silly. The kids enjoy them. So if I were to show you what they look like, you print them out. And they have these little blending lines. So first they can practice reading those CVC words. You could have them write some words, and then they have the passage that you can print out. And you do it in color, or you can have them do it in black and white, and they can color it in. So UFly, Measured Mom, they're all really great. The other one that I really like, or the other two that I really like, are Primary Phonics, and they have like Mac and Tab and all these different books, and they're a little bit longer, but they're really good, and some of them make the kids laugh, which is nice. And again, they can reread it because it's not quite as short. So if I pull out the first one just to show you how they build, the first one is Mac and Tab. And if you look at this first one, it's very simple. Tab is a cat. And it's just very nice and simple, but it's silly because in the story, one of the characters eats the ham and it's meant for the cat. And then the cat at the end steals the mouse's hat. And it's just silly. And then it builds all the way up to a story like this, which is later on. And then you see a little bit, the words are a little bit longer, and there's a little bit more words on the page. So I have used this Primary Phonics for years. I used it when I taught in Montessori back in 2010. And I was like, wow, 2026, so they've really stood the test of time. The last one are Hooked on Phonics. They do have an app. I don't agree with their whole program, but I love their books because they're so nice and simple. And the kids really enjoy them because the characters repeat. So they remember the characters' names. Like they remember Pigwig. So it's not that they have to sound out each word. So yeah, so those are the decodable books that I would suggest. Does anyone have questions about decodable books? No? Okay. All right, so I'm really glad you guys came today. We had a chance to talk about some common reading myths, things that, like I said, were common beliefs just a few years ago. We had a chance to talk about where your children are at as far as their reading milestones and where you can help them. I've given you some materials and some games that you can play. We also finally wrapped up with those decodable books, how they can apply what they're learning and how you can help them feel successful. I'm gonna wrap up today with helping with that B and D confusion. It still can get confusing, but this is something that I teach parents and I teach kids that really does help. Let me just apologize.
Sarah, I'm going to drop off, but thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
All right, so with that B and D confusion, what you show your child is when you make that B sound, your lips are in a line. So you start with the line and you bump around, and then you have a B. So you say, oh, B, B, the letters B. Remember, your lips are in a line and you bump it around.
Got it.
And so now with the D, and this might take some time because he's probably already learned how to make a D, is when you make the D sound, your mouth is open. So start with the opening. So you want to make the letters differently so that it helps see the difference in their brain. So, oh, when I make a D, I start with the opening, I go down, and I go up. And that gives them a chance to really think about it. The other thing that you can tell kids is B has a belly. B wears a diaper.
Okay. Okay, that's funny. I tell him B is like a bat is hitting the ball, like the straight line comes first. Yeah, and the D, I just tell him like the circle comes first, but I think D wears a diaper might make him laugh and remember more.
Someone told me that and I just enjoyed it a lot. People also do like the bed thing where you can make that the E's in the middle and this is the B-E-D. But I've tried that with kids and they're like, I don't understand, and it doesn't make sense. But
Yeah, if he sees B and D in the same letter, he'll get confused. So
like, that's why I like the belly and the diaper. But the ball and the bat, I've heard, the donut,
on it.
kind of goofy too. Ben's like,
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for those examples.
Yeah. And do you have any other questions before we wrap up for today?
I think we've covered a lot of things. Thanks for that UFly link. There are books. Yeah, there are a lot of books that I can probably make him read. I was reading Bob books with him.
Those are excellent. I just don't have any on me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just like anger and frustration when I teach him. I don't know how to get over that with him. That makes him like not read and feel like it is a punishment that he's reading, and every time I have to make him like have a timer and say, hey, if we have get all these points on this numbers chart, like we have 100 points, and then you can get an ice cream like 2 weeks later or something, and that makes him motivated, but still like not enough to pick a book by himself and start reading. And I want him to get there where he picks up a book by himself and starts reading and gets excited about it. He was excited about it when we were just reading books to him. He would bring us a book and ask us to read, but now he's gone off of that because we made him start reading. I don't get over that.
I'm sorry.
He's 4.5.
Oh, so he's still really little. So like the games that I suggested make it more enjoyable. I mean, I'm never above bribery, like, get a ice cream, or you know what I mean? Because you want once they get going, they're fine. But the games are always really helpful because they feel like, oh, we're playing a game. When I have kids that don't like are a little bit more like, I don't really want to do tutoring, I'll say, oh, we're gonna read this and then we're gonna play this game. And then, it seems to set them up a little bit better. But I'm also not their mom, so that always makes a difference too. I do also have a course that I'm offering parents that I just want to share with you really quick, and then I'm sure with the little one, you'd probably have to get going. But I have a coaching program for parents where we meet once to twice a week, depending on your availability. And then I also have this course that I'm going to share with you really quickly, where I go through a little bit more in depth of what I did today. And there's different videos and things that help you kind of get set up, and ideas and games that are in there that it only takes you like maybe a week or two to go through, but then you have it for 120 days, so you can go back and forth to it. But it goes into more depth of what we talked about today and gives you some more games and things that you can play.
Okay, sounds good. I'll check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you have my email address. I'm going to send you the information that we went over today as far as the games and the things that I use. But please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm really glad that you came today.
Yeah, thanks so much for all the suggestions on the games. I will try some of them.